This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Luke Sylvia and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is December 11th, 2023. Jonathan Osborne here. As always, I am joined by my co-host, Luke Sylvia. Luke, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm great, personally. I will say I have officially came to the conclusion that I am not a fan of these non-NBA days. I don't know if this is done because of, I'm assuming it's all because of the in-season tournament. They had the championship last night. They're trying to make it feel special. They only had one game last night. You got no NBA games today. There was another day recently that there was no NBA games. The Magic played December 2nd, right? And then we didn't get our first game last week till December 6th on Wednesday. That was weird to me. I'm about ready for this part to be done. I'm glad the in-season tournament is over for that reason. I don't know if there's any other weird stretches like that this year, but you
just like the All-Star break,
right? You've got your game against as you guys are listening to this tonight, and you play the Celtics on Friday. I'm just not a fan of these like 3 days without Magic games, and then some days without an NBA game. That's kind of what's on my mind, to be honest with you. But does the anticipation kill you for the next Magic game when you have a stretch like that, like a few days without games?
No Magic days stress me out. Like no NBA games doesn't like really ruin my day. Like I find other stuff to do because we're so wrapped up in the NBA season all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
From the end of October recently until like the middle of April. So I find other things to do. Spend time with the wife and the family and everything like that. Going 3+ days without Magic basketball in the middle of the season normally sucks. Right now, we so desperately need to get healthy, especially with this stretch that the Magic are going on with the schedule, which we've been talking about. So I'm okay with it right now. I miss Magic basketball, but I am looking at the bigger picture and I understand how important it is for our guys specifically to get rest right now. But Luke, now that the inaugural in-season tournament has concluded in the Los Angeles Lakers, I'm sure the league absolutely freaking loves that the Lakers won the first ever in-season tournament. But now that, we've gone through the past month of the group play and, throughout the knockout round and into the finals, what are your thoughts just overall on the in-season tournament now?
Overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more toward the end of the group stage, and I enjoyed the knockouts. I think they were a lot of fun. I think the intensity was great. The thing that I would change is probably it being in Vegas. I think it's just kind of lame. Like the crowd was very lame. You know what I mean? Like they just were not into it. Specifically with that, was it the Pacers game and whoever they played?
The Bucks.
The Bucks, yeah. Just felt like the energy was really low, and it was like, do you guys not?
For a fantastic game.
Yeah, it was an awesome game. So at that point, that's kind of what I would say is I'm already ready to get away from the neutral site thing. Maybe the players loved it. I have no idea. Reports came out that the players didn't like the point differential thing in the group stages. They can get over it because that was the best part of that final night. That was awesome, even though it, bit the Magic in the butt for sure. But yeah, I think that was great. Dude, the last thing I will say, after the Lakers win, there's a video going around of LeBron with a champagne bottle in the locker room going crazy. I thought it was super corny how people were just saying that this was embarrassing. Oh, how embarrassing. And I was like, okay, before this, I guarantee you were the person that, like a lot of us were saying, I don't know if the players are going to care. Therefore, I don't know if this tournament's going to matter. Now that they're having they're doing it appropriately, where you have an MVP of the tournament or whatever, you get $500,000 and all these players are just celebrating. LeBron's even celebrating. AD's playing with his hair on fire in that finals game. It was all fun. So if you can't you can't do that and then come back and say that it was embarrassing that they were celebrating like that. So I think fans still have some stuff to learn about that. I understand it was because of the Lakers and people love to hate on them. And if it was like a Cinderella team celebrating, like if the Magic had won it, maybe tune would be a little bit different. But yeah, I just thought that was a little bit corny, but I don't know.
If the Magic would have won it and the Magic were celebrating, we would have got clowned for celebrating like we won the finals. That's exactly, I think, how that would have gone.
Yeah, it's interesting because but if the Pacers would have won, that would not have been the reception. People would have been talking about how great Tyrese is and that whole team and the jump that they've made. Yeah, perception's a really funny thing, and just how fans around the league perceive your team.
I saw that same tweet before you quote tweeted it. And what came to my mind is like LeBron's not celebrating because he won the in-season tournament and he won the in-season tournament finals. He's celebrating for like the two-way guys on the roster who almost like doubled their yearly salary.
Yeah.
And if you can't understand that, it tells me like either you've never played sports and you have no idea what it's like to be genuinely happy for a teammate of yours when they succeed or something great happens to them, or you're just a terrible human being. Like, my thing recently is I've gotten heavily into golf. And as much as I love like hitting a fantastic shot or like sinking a great putt, almost equally as fun is seeing one of your buddies hit a great shot or one of your buddies sinking a great putt and celebrating with them. And to me, that's what LeBron was doing. Like, he's celebrating for these guys who don't make a bajillion dollars a year like one LeBron James does, but these guys who like $500,000 is like significantly life altering for a lot of these guys. And to your point, like, people didn't know if the in-season tournament was really going to be great because it all comes down to whether or not the players buy in. Well, guess what? The players bought in, and like from a viewing experience, all of the games were fantastic. Like, most of the group stage games were really competitive. Most of the knockout games were really competitive. Like, that Milwaukee Indiana game was incredible. What I will say is the Vegas thing didn't work this year. And I think it's because people didn't realize how big of a deal it was going to be and how much people were actually going to buy in. I think next year there may be a chance that people are like, oh no, like, just like it's a All-Star weekend is like a destination trip for a lot of people because they want to go and they want to experience that. The in-season tournament semifinals and finals next year maybe it's not going to be All-Star weekend, but it might be a bit better of an experience. All that being said, I don't think Vegas will ever be as fun as one of these teams hosting the in-season tournament final. It'll never be as fun as that by any means.
Yeah, it's just hard because you want to create a neutral environment, but whatever. I get it. I get why they did it in Vegas. They're trying to make it unique and all of those things. And I think that for the most, like, overall, I really enjoyed it. Now, that doesn't mean I would trade we had the conversation early on in that group stage where you get beat by the Brooklyn Nets and you talk about, should Mosley have played more for point differential down the stretch or should he not have? Whatever. I still stand where I stood at that point, which was pack it up. You're down by 20. Get the next win the next night, and I don't care that it's not an in-season tournament group game. I don't find myself caring that much, but as an NBA fan, I love the in-season tournament, if that makes sense. But for my team, like, that I root for every night, I'm wanting to rack up wins no matter what the stakes are because I know come postseason time, the wins are going to matter. So that's kind of where I stand on all of that for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult balance because there's a bigger picture, of course, like the entire season. Like, the in-season tournament is awesome and it's really fun. But you also do have to weigh it against, like, hey, is this worth leaving these guys out here, especially on like an instance where you have a back-to-back, and hey, like, are we just going to pull these guys and instead of risking one of these guys, getting hurt? To me, like, leave it the way that it is with like with the point differential. What I do think needs to change is the groups need to be structured differently to facilitate every game, like everyone's final game being played on the same night. Because that garbage where teams knew exactly how many points they needed to score going into a game, I didn't really like that. I think teams would approach the games differently on the final night if they just didn't know how many points they needed to score.
Also, the silver lining is that the Magic got to play the Detroit Pistons and the Cleveland Cavaliers, who, yes, the Cavs are still a good team, but they're not really the caliber of team that, in my opinion, I know how they finished last year and they finished high in the East, but I still would have played them over anybody else in the group, in that knockout round there. The Magic kind of got off the hook with that, and teams that just didn't make it, you get the chance to kind of look at the draw that you might get to play against a bad team. The Magic got lucky enough for that to be the case. Not going to be the case every year that maybe the Magic don't make the knockout stage of that tournament, but that is a silver lining, and I am interested to see how teams end up saying, like, maybe I don't care about that because I think we can get some favorable matchups. I don't know. If we don't make it, rack up a couple wins that maybe we wouldn't have the chance at, and we, instead of playing these hard teams in the in-season tournament, because every game counts in that knockout round except for the championship. So I don't know. I don't think that would happen, but there's just another like strategy and strategical way of thinking. There's a lot to really balance when it comes to in-season tournament. Overall, I give it an A.
I think the $500,000 has proven to be a big enough incentive for guys to take it seriously, if not for themselves, for the other guys on the roster that don't make as much as them. Agreed. And like the financial impact that would make for those guys. So yeah, 2 thumbs up, A+. Love the in-season tournament. I think it was a bigger success that the NBA could have even hoped for going into this, and I think they'll make improvements, small improvements and small changes heading into next year. Couple of things related to the show. Our next episode of the Six Fan Show, if you're listening to this on Monday, December 11th, Ben is going to be outside of Amway tonight after the Magic play the Cavs, filming the next episode of the Six Fan Show. So if you're going to be in attendance, we would love it for you guys to stop by, say what's up to Ben, and be featured on the new episode of the Six Fan Show. Our next watch party is coming up this Friday, December 15th, when the Magic take on the Boston Celtics. A little bit of an update. We said that this was going to be at Castaways. This watch party is actually going to be at Tavern East Orlando, which is at the same address. This is now formerly known as Castaways. We're still going to be at 504 North Alafaya Trail. Just didn't want people to show up and not see Castaways and be like, where am I? I don't think I'm at the right place for this watch party. 504 North Alafaya Trail. It's now Tavern East Orlando, formerly known as Castaways. That watch party is going to kick off around 7:30. Tip-off is at 8 o'clock. And Luke and I's biggest concern when hearing about the change from Castaways to Tavern East Orlando was, who's going to get wang banged? Because
that's right.
We were talking about the wang bang sauce at Castaways, and we're like, wow, if it's not Castaways, we're not going to get wang banged. But wang bang me, baby. We're getting wang banged anyway, because Tavern East Orlando still has the wang bang shrimp. So we're going to get to try the wang bang sauce.
We're getting wang banged. The Boston Celtics are getting wang banged. They're
getting wang G banged.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Whoa. Hey. Listen, everybody's getting it Friday.
All three of those words would have rhymed, by the way.
Yeah, tip of the cap to you. Listen, it's going to be a fun time. I hope you guys come out. Jonathan and I will be there. Kevin's going to be holding it down for the post-game live afterwards from his home. So, man, it is going to be a really fun time. You'll come to that. You can tune into the post-game live right after. I'm interested to see if we see some phones open up to YouTube, go to the post-game live right after the game ends, so they can tune in to old producer Kevy, because I think that's what I will be doing as well. We will see. It'll be a really fun night.
Yeah, looking forward to that. So again, this Friday, when the Magic take on the Celtics, will be at Tavern East Orlando, formerly known as Castaways, located at 504 North Alafaya Trail. Watch party starts at 7:30. Tip-offs at 8 o'clock. And now for your weekly state of the Magic. So far, or not so far, this past week, the Magic went 1-1. They had a loss to Cleveland on Wednesday, a win over the Pistons on Friday. Once again, they sit second in the Eastern Conference with a record of 15-7. They hold the tiebreaker over Milwaukee, who's also 15-7. They're a half game up on Philadelphia, 2 games up on Indiana and Cleveland, 2.5 games up on Brooklyn and New York, and 3 games up on the Miami Heat. The Magic so far are 16th in the NBA in offensive rating with a rating of 113.9. They are second in the NBA in defensive rating with a rating of 108.9, and they are fifth in overall net rating with a net rating of 4.9. Injury report: Markelle Fultz has missed the last 14 games with left knee tendonitis. Wendell Carter Jr. has missed the last 17 games with a fractured third metacarpal in his left hand. If my timeline and my memory serves me correct, Luke, I believe he goes back to the doctor this week to see if he's able to fully resume basketball activity. So I think this week or maybe early next week, we should hear an update on Wendell that he's been able to resume basketball activities, obviously barring any type of setbacks. Jonathan Isaac has missed the past 3 games after re-aggravating the right ankle sprain. Jalen Suggs has missed the last 2 games with a right ankle strain. Both Jonathan Isaac and Jalen Suggs are questionable, Luke, for Monday's game versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. And now that we're heading into this stretch, like, we need to get those guys back sooner rather than later.
Our defense, for the sake of our defense alone, not just the team in general, but for the sake of our defense, we need those guys on the court. Jonathan Isaac just giving us however many minutes he can give us. Jalen Suggs giving us his usual minute load is going to be pivotal in this stretch.
Let's talk about the game from Friday against the Detroit Pistons, which I was nervous for, Luke. The Pistons going into this game had lost 18 straight games. And essentially what it comes down to is you don't want to be the team that a team snaps that kind of losing streak against, especially when you're in the position that the Magic are, where low expectations coming into the season, super hot out of the gate, they win 9 in a row. All of a sudden you lose 2 in a row, and you're sitting there with Detroit coming into town. And if you lose 3 in a row and you're the team that Detroit snaps their losing streak against, all of a sudden you start to hear the whispers and the muttering across the league that, oh, look at the Magic's Linsanity run, coming to an end. Look at the Mickey Mouse Magic and look at the fraudulent Magic and so on and so forth. Like, you start to hear that kind of talk, and I just know that would have been inevitable. We had our Patreon Zoom with our members the night before that game, Thursday night, and that's what we were all talking about, is we cannot lose to Detroit. Luke, how nervous, where would you gauge yourself going into this game against Detroit?
It always sucks going into a game as a fan being like, if we win, who cares? Because, we're expected to, right? You're not going to have a bunch of fanfare for beating the Pistons. They're on a, at the time, 17-game losing streak or whatever it was, or 18 at the time. I don't even remember. No one's going to celebrate you for beating them. But if you lose, like you said, all of those things ensue. There was nerves for sure, because it was like, man, you kind of start doubting the Magic before they even play this game, right? You're like, man, maybe we're not that good. maybe I should have hit the panic button. And then you thankfully come out and you handle business against the Pistons. But and you were like, okay, never mind. Like, all my worries, they can stay kind of, at the wayside right now. We keep them at bay, go on to the next game.
So let's talk about this game. Magic, slow start, as has become a trend in recent games. We're down 7 to the Pistons in the first quarter, then go on a 14-0 run to take a 28-21 lead late in the first. You end up 5 after the first quarter, and the Magic have another 10-0 run in the second quarter to push the lead to 15. I believe they had a 14-point lead at the half. Midway through that second quarter, before the Magic really blew open the game, Detroit was looking a little bit too comfortable and a little bit too confident, right? That's the danger with a team that has lost so many games in a row. They know at some point the streak is going to end. Like, they're not going to lose every game for the rest of the year. And these are NBA players who have more confidence than anyone you've ever met, like just in your personal life. And they go into each one of these games like believing they have a shot to win. And the longer you give a bad team that belief that they can win, the more they start to believe that, the more confidence that they start playing with, and the more dangerous they become. So seeing the Magic able to open up, that halftime lead, up 14 at the half, Magic scored 28 points, Luke, in the first quarter, and then score at least 30 points in each of the final 3 quarters. And really by a couple of minutes into the second half, this game was really over, and you quickly saw the life and the confidence just completely drain out of the Pistons, realizing like, okay, here we are again. We gave ourselves a chance through, the first 20 or so minutes of this game, and now it's just completely over. We're going to lose our 19th game in a row. The body language from a lot of their players was just terrible. You can tell that these guys are not having fun right now. They wanted to be anywhere else in the world than that basketball court in Amway in Orlando on that Friday night, Luke. And guys being down, guys out of the lineup for us, doesn't matter. Like you talked about, this is a team that the Magic were expected to win. It was a game that you were expected to win big. And in previous years where the Magic have had issues playing up to competition and playing down to competition, after this game, Luke, the Magic are now 9-1 on the season against teams that are below 500. And that's an encouraging sign because for years, that's been an issue with the Magic, playing up and playing down a competition. And this year, when you're playing a bad team, especially you're playing a bad team at home, the Magic take care of business and the Magic are winning those games. Like you said, nobody cares that you won this game. Everybody would have cared if you lost this game. And it's just good to come away with a win and it be a big, comfortable win at that.
And the one loss was the weird one in Mexico City, right? Which we wish that maybe we could scrub from the record, from whether that be the home record, the total record, whatever it might be. That's the only game you lose to a team that's below 500. Atlanta, below 500, by the way. That's pretty rough right now for them. I will say, you talk about like in years past, it's been a struggle. I'll give credit to at O-Town NBA for doing the work that I did not do for this podcast. And if he is wrong,
what a line.
If he is wrong, or if I'm wrong, just blame him. All right.
Yeah, fair.
But he
give him all the credit, give him all the blame.
That's exactly right, baby. So someone replied to that tweet that you put out about the Magic being 9-1 this year against teams that are, below 500. And they said last year we often played down to opponents, which to your point, once again, that's been the problem the last few years. And at O-Town NBA says last year, 2-2 against Detroit, 2-2 against Washington, 1-3 against Indiana, 1-1 against Houston, 1-1 against the Spurs, 1-1 against Portland, 0-2 against Utah. So goes to show, furthermore, the Magic absolutely struggled to kind of put some numbers to it.
They're 15-16 last year against teams below 500. Now you're 9-1. That's a pretty big difference.
Big difference. Further proof this is not the same team as last year. And it's a great sign. I mean, listen, you can say, woohoo, you beat the Detroit Pistons, but you should have. So I'm glad you did. I'm glad we did. But I'm also glad that it was never really in doubt after, that we were down there in the first quarter early going. Then you get into it. And listen, that's the other thing too, I will say about this, Jonathan, because let's be honest, like this game just was not really like I said, wasn't too much of a contest, not a whole lot to dissect in this game. So when you look at it, you've seen the Magic kind of get a little bit lackadaisical in the first quarter compared to what we saw at the beginning of the year. In that first quarter, we were a great, incredible first half team. Now the Magic still win this first half. Don't hurt their numbers there as far as margin goes. But I just wonder if it's more of like this team is just maybe more relaxed, knowing that like, hey, we're a better team. We can turn it on when we need to. Maybe that's what we're seeing. I'm not saying that's the right attitude to have, maybe the right psyche, mental space to be in. But it is interesting because it's like you were just punching every team in the mouth to start games on that win streak, especially. And in general, you were the best first half team in the league. Now at this point, I believe you're like one of the best still. Yeah, you're second. So, but you were first by a long shot. So it's kind of taking, foot off the pedal a little bit there, but still understanding we've got the means to go whenever we want to, which is, it's a sign of a good team. Yes, a good team will coast sometimes, but they know how to turn it on and when to do it and how to do it.
Yeah, I think, in years past, being down 7 in the first quarter, like I would start to get a little bit nervous.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it has to do with the opponent in the Detroit Pistons, and those guys and their fans are going through like enough, like with the state of that team, that I don't want to like pile on the Detroit Pistons. But some of it had to do with the opponent, and the other part of it was just like, no, I'm confident that these guys are really just going to be able to turn it on and figure it out and win this game. And Luke, something is happening right now with Paolo Banchero where he's just elevating his game like to another level. Like it started Wednesday with the 42-point explosion against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And in this one, 24 points on 9 of 17, 6 of 7 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. But this is just like the second straight game where it has legitimately felt like Paolo Banchero is unstoppable. Like he's just going to get to his spots and he's going to knock down shots, like tough or not. I'm just so confident in the way that he's playing right now. And you can tell that he's just playing with an ultra level of confidence. I can't believe we've gotten now 20 plus minutes in the show. We failed to acknowledge the fact that we're having Jeff Turner on in the later part of the show here. So that's our bad. But we talked to JT about Paolo Banchero and just the level of confidence that he's playing with right now. And somehow, some way, like it seems hard to fathom, like as good as Paolo Banchero has been. And of course, logic tells you that a second year player is just going to continue to get better. But I'm like, somehow this kid is getting even better, like on a nightly basis, like right before our eyes.
Absolutely. And there's players that you play against and everybody knows the feeling. When you go up against a star player and they have like a wide open shot in general, but like specifically like a wide open mid-range shot, whatever it might be, you give a player this little bit of space. You're like, oh, that's easily going in the basket. That is where I'm pretty much at with Paolo, right? Like, don't get me wrong. There's still times where him being so young in his career, he's not perfect when it comes to certain shots. Sometimes he's wide open and he doinks it, right? But a lot of the time, I still have the confidence that, the ball's going in, right? Last year, he shoots 42.7% from the field on 15.6 attempts. To this point, 22 games in, he's shooting 49.4% on 15.3 attempts. Roughly the same volume, just way better on his splits, right? And we know that. That is what we've come to know with him. But yeah, he's just getting to the point where you have full confidence. In the last 10, he's shooting almost 54% on almost 17 field goal attempts. So that would be up a couple.
He's giving us Franz Wagner efficiency on Paolo volume.
And it is absolutely insane to watch. So, and Paolo in this one too. I mean, Franz in this one too. I mean, 12 for 20. It's very good. 2 of 4 from 3, 27 points. We are just consistently getting spoiled now by these guys combining for 50 plus points. Feels like that's going to become the norm. And until one of them just kind of rises to the top, which obviously recency bias, but I expect that to be Paolo Banchero. But you asked me about a couple of weeks ago, I would have said Franz is the one that's going to rise to the top. I have no idea. Eventually, one of these guys is going to become the clear number one, I think. Kind of like we've heard a lot of like the Tatum and Brown comparisons. Brown is, you ask anybody, Brown's the number 2. But he's still capable of giving you incredible games. And that's what these guys are going to become. And I can't wait for that to happen. But for now, right now, Paolo just looks like, until he separates himself even more, these guys are going to continue to combine for 50 pretty regularly because they're both averaging now over 20 points per game. I think that shift happens in the Cavs game on Wednesday, where they were both now averaging 20 a game. So the Magic officially have a duo that is averaging 40 plus points per game.
Yeah, 42-point performance in your 21st game of the season is going to bump up the old points per game a couple of notches there. I think what is going to sort of separate Paolo and Franz is like, Franz is like very much like, and I'm not trying to say that Paolo has like a massive ego or anything, but Franz is like very much like doesn't care about the attention, like doesn't care about the recognition, just like wants to play basketball and be like really good. Paolo wants to be the guy. Paolo wants to be remembered as great. Like, I think it was during the like pre-draft process, he was asked like, would you rather win like championships and never win an All-Star, or would you rather win a ton of All-Stars and never win a ring? And he said, I'll take the All-Stars. Meaning like if he is going to win, he wants it to be because he was just a incredibly great player. And hey, I respect the swagger 100%. Yeah. So, but both of those guys just like playing so well right now. It's really a joy to watch on a nightly basis. And then just another great performance from Cole Anthony off the bench, 16 points, 6 of 12 from behind the arc. Made all of his free throws, 3 of 3, added 3 rebounds and 6 assists. And Joe Ingles, not an incredible, offensive performance, but in 16 minutes, giving you 4 rebounds, 5 assists. Joe Ingles, towards the top of the league in total assists off the bench this year, just coming in and making an impact, even if he's not, scoring the basketball a ton. And the Magic, doing a good job of beating up Detroit on the glass. 26 assists on 49, field goals, over half your attempts being assisted. Really, really good. And then our guy Goga Bitadze, 13 points, 8 rebounds, 2 steals, and 4 blocks, 6 of 7 from the floor. Just really great game for Goga Bitadze. Magic did not take Detroit lightly, which is a good sign. Again, take care of the teams that you should beat. And Luke, just not really any big criticisms in this game. Magic needed to beat up on the Pistons, and they were able to do that. I don't really think there's a lot to be upset about in this one.
We talked about this in our talk with Jeff Turner. But once again, I've said this is probably the 4th straight episode. It doesn't matter the circumstances. The Magic are going to play their basketball. You're not going to speed them up. You're not going to slow them down. They're going to play their game, which is what they say about the great teams in the NBA. They say that about the Denver Nuggets, notably slow-paced team, because you've got freaking Jokic who moves at the speed of a sloth, but is very methodical and can get to his spots, do whatever he wants, right? That's what you hear so often about.
Do you think you could beat
teams.
Jokic in a 40-yard dash?
I don't know what that man's 40-yard dash time is, but he's definitely he's beaten me in a mile, that's for sure. But I listen, but to that point, the Magic are going to just play their game. In this game against Detroit, you shoot 26 3-pointers. That's about average for you. You make 38%. That's not average, right? But the shots were falling for the Magic's perspective, right? Like for their standards, the 3-point shot was falling. And you just play your game. 74 points in the paint, 74 to their 44. You hold Detroit under 100 points. Magic to this point undefeated when they hold their opponent under 100 points. It's a good recipe for success. But, you get a good lead in this game. You're up 14 at half. Who's to say that a young, inexperienced team doesn't come out just doing whatever on offense, launching threes for no reason, just because they feel comfortable with the lead? That's what an Orlando Magic team does last year. This year, team continue, get your feet in the paint, get paint touches, play your game from there, and good things will happen. That's how you go into the half leading by 14, end up winning this game by way more than that, right? However, whatever the math is there, 30 points basically. So, man, this team, not enough can be said about just their identity, understanding it, playing every game that way, no matter if they're up by 15 plus points or down by 15 plus.
This part of the program is brought to you by our friends over at Jam Hot Chicken. We're going to talk about this week's Jam of the Week. And Luke, this was the first week so far since we've been doing the Jam of the Week that we didn't have like a absolute like home run dunk candidate. So we decided to go with a play from Paolo Banchero's 42-point explosion career high from earlier in the week against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So late, I should say, in the first quarter, Isaac Okoro is driving to the rim. Cole Anthony makes a fantastic block. Mo Wagner comes up with the rebound, pushes it ahead to Gary Harris, who finds the open Paolo Banchero on the other end of the floor. He drives to the rim. Georges Niang makes a pretty smart business decision, and Paolo Banchero is able to just get up and slam it home with the fingertips there. But just a fantastic game for Paolo Banchero. We talked about the last couple of games, just feels absolutely unstoppable. And I think the confidence that he got from finally breaking the seal, because you knew that it was coming. You knew a 40-point game was eventually coming from Paolo Banchero. And a lot of guys have random 30-point games in the league. Not many random guys end up having 40-point games. The 40, 50, 60 plus games, unless you're, Corey Brewer or Mo Williams. I'm not throwing Terrence Ross into that conversation. He had a 50-point game, but Terrence Ross is freaking Terrence Ross. He's not Mo Williams. He's not Corey Brewer. I'm putting him in the upper echelon there. But 40-plus point games are reserved for, the great scorers in the NBA. So Paolo Banchero able to do that. And, early baskets, getting a little easy dunk, sidestepping George Niang and getting that dunk, getting him in a good rhythm and continuing what he had going on. That's this week's Jam of the Week, Luke.
Jam of the Week paired with the fact that Paolo Banchero is an absolute monster, to your point. Again, brought to you by Jam Hot Chicken. They're bringing Jam's culture and hot chicken to the heart of Winter Park. You go check them out online, jamhotchickenfl.com, to look at their menu. Order ahead online. That's the move, as I've said many times before. Address 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square. Recently ranked number 9 on top restaurants in Orlando. Don't know if you guys are familiar, but Orlando is a large city with a lot of restaurants. And for a restaurant that's not been around that long to already be getting the recognition that they are getting, you could say they're kind of like a Paolo Banchero. Young, promising, already dominating 40-point games. That's what that Sando does for me every time I eat it. I just want to give everyone in the back a high five. Please go check out Jam Hot Chicken. Let them know we sent you. We know you guys are loving them so far, in just a short time that we've been partnered with them, and we know that you'll continue to.
Jam Hot Chicken, they're sort of their tagline, Jam's Culture Hot Chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Now it should be Jam Hot Chicken, the Paolo Banchero of the Orlando food scene.
That's right. I like that.
You just like we'll send them the bill for like that bit of marketing advice there. And hey, Valley Sports Florida, Kendra Douglas was at Jam Hot Chicken this past week. Said it was absolutely fantastic. So first of all, shout out to Kendra for like supporting like local Orlando businesses and being part of like the Orlando Magic fan culture, because it's kind of becoming a thing. I think we are a direct part of that, and that's super exciting to say. Like, it's just becoming a thing that like Magic fans go to Jam Hot Chicken, and it's great because Andrew and the team over at Jam Hot are big Magic fans. So it's a match made in hot chicken heaven, I think.
I agree.
So we love the team over there. Shout out to Jam Hot. Now, this is the part of the show where we go ahead and shout out our wonderful patrons. If you're not familiar with Patreon, Patreon is a platform where you can help financially support your favorite creator so that they're able to create the content that you love. So part of our benefits is for our Hall of Fame and our elite tier patrons. We give them a special shout out on each and every episode. So we'll go ahead and start with the Court Cousins, and then Drew Gooden, Armin, Carson Tulo, Jonathan Borges, Normal, Magic Player History, Gabe Gaines, Wiffle, Michael Martin, Jamel Miller, Michael Salapong, Donkey Punch Dave, Paolo and Franz's Warmth, Pierre A. Dylan Holden, Mr. Mikey, Eduardo Sanchez, Danimal, Dodo 15, Bobby Skinner, Goody 93, Teddy Sylvia, Eric Lopez, Fuchsia, Bill Fulton, Edmund Lagone, Hosea Squealing, Caleb Pete, Cannibalism Time, Mr. TV, ESPN Really Sucks, Gear 95, Shred, Junior Bruce, Half Freakin', Shahin 177, Bulby the Dawn, Himlo, Ben Himro, Arm Prof 221, Ray Pastrana, Spanking Season, Soft Taco, Victor Cologne, Irish Magic Mike, Austin Lampy, Random Hustle, Eddie House's Burner, Maria, Keith Wallace, Fritz, Currency Kev, Bruv Sal, Kason Green, Santi Leon, Kane Eckler, The Distract, Ahmad Timsa, and Chansu. A big thank you to all of our patrons. You can find us at patreon.com/The Six Man Show. And now, without further ado, we're going to get into our conversation with Jeff Turner. And now, Orlando Magic fans, we are joined by a very special guest. We've sort of made this a regular thing the last couple of seasons here. We're joined by color commentator. I can't speak here. Jeff Turner from the Bally Sports Florida broadcast. Checking in our quarterly check-in now. Jeff, we're 22 games through the season now. Magic are sitting here at 15 and 7. Much more fun covering a winning team. I think we can all agree. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yes, I'm enjoying. Always enjoy the job. I've got one of the best jobs in the NBA. But winning is kind of fun. Going in every night, not thinking, boy, we're going to have to be really good, and the other team might have to be really bad to get this game. I'm a believer, much like these Magic players are, that any given night they step out on the court. they're as good as the guys on the other side. So it's fun. It's fun. 15-7 at the quarter pole is a pretty good place to be.
You've had some, the Magic have had just some games lately. You play against the Pistons, who are on a large losing streak right now. The Magic have gotten the chance the last couple weeks to play against teams that kind of last year were the Magic, especially at the beginning of the season, right? But
Yeah.
it's just been, has it been the same experience for you going into these games against the Pistons where it's like, it'll be really disappointing if the Magic drop this game? It's a super unique position to be in for a Magic fan because it's like we haven't had a whole lot of that we expect to win type of scenarios.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there is some, when you're sitting in the top four in the conference, there is an expectation that the Pistons come to town. That's a given. But you guys have followed the NBA. Someone's going to get beat by the Detroit Pistons. It was funny before the game the other night against Detroit. I was talking with Greg Kelser, the my counterpart on Pistons broadcast, and he was just talking about their streak and the team and how they had just had some games where they're there but they just couldn't finish. And I was like, yeah, I know what that feels like. And he was, he's talking about, I'm looking at the schedule and I don't know where the next win's going to come, right? And what I told him was, what's going to happen is it's going to be against somebody that nobody expected. It's going to be Detroit's going to win a game against, one of the top teams in the NBA. It's going to be one of those nights. That's the way the NBA works. And I told him, I said, it could be tonight, because now as the streak goes on, the pressure on whoever they're playing not to be the team that loses to Detroit becomes even greater. So, it's a tough spot to be in. I've been in it as a player and as a broadcaster. You just keep trying to do the work and, you hope that you catch a break. So, it's interesting. I remember, when I was playing back in the early days of the Magic, we were on a 17-game losing streak and went into Seattle to play the Sonics. Gary Payton and Sean Kemp and just a really good, one of the top teams in the Western Conference. And we went in there and for whatever reason, it's a close game. Gary Payton fouls Sam Vincent with 1 second on the clock. It was under 5 seconds, and puts Sam at the line to shoot 2 free throws to win that game. And he does. And, it's just one of those crazy things where you just don't foul there. Or, why are we even in the game? I think we were playing with 8 or 9 players is all we had. So that's what's going to happen with Detroit. The Magic have been on that. So, end of it in, recent years. So, it is interesting to be on the other side of it, as you guys are talking about, playing a Pistons team that is in that situation, and you're kind of one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference as we speak.
Speaking of streaks, the Magic are somewhat fresh off their own streak, the 9-game winning streak, matching the franchise record. And now 15-7. I think last time I checked, they're either second or third right now in the Eastern Conference. I think it's safe to say pretty far ahead of even the loftiest expectations for this team so far through the season. Jeff, what were your expectations of this Magic team coming into the season, and have they met or exceeded your expectations so far?
I think it's safe. We can all agree that nobody saw us being 15-7, 8 games over 500 at this point of the season. I did think coming in that the advantages that we had, and I think you guys have probably talked about this a lot, are we were healthy, right? We finished strong last season, right? People forget how poor we started last season and how well we finished after that 5-20 start. What was it, 28-27 over the last 56 games? So, or something along those lines. But anyway, So I knew that the team had taken steps. And then what was interesting is Jeff Weltman and his crew made very few moves, right? They trusted what they were doing and stayed with this group, adding obviously the draft picks and Joe Ingles. But it's pretty much the same team. And they came back healthy. So they had continuity and health to start the season. And I think that early on was a big reason, going out west quick and, those first 5 games and going 3-1, I believe, on that trip where we went out west, beating Portland, and getting the games out there. I thought, that was because of our continuity. And then coming home, in the 9-game winning streak, I think that all kind of led to the belief in where they're at. We can go back and forth. There were games that we probably should have won, and then there were games where we could have lost them just as easily as we won them. So to be in this position, I think nobody really saw this coming to be at this position. I kind of felt like if we could get through Christmas, above 500, we'd be in a good spot, right? We still got a ways to go, obviously, in a very difficult part of the schedule coming up, but you feel pretty good about it the way they're playing.
There's 2 teams last year that when I think of the Magic this year and the trajectory that they're on, I think of these 2 teams from last year. I think of the Sacramento Kings and I think of the Utah Jazz, right? Mm-hmm. They both have a blistering hot start to the season. And then we see the Utah Jazz, who were kind of became like that Cinderella team last year in the NBA to start the season, similar to the Magic, where they just start this downward spiral and they just kind of trickle down, right? They finished the year 37-45, even though they got off to a hot start. Sacramento finds themselves in a playoff series to start the postseason against the Golden State Warriors. They have this great season that ends, with the bang as well. Like they had it all going. Jeff, what's the difference between like where the Magic could end up in that downward spiral as this young team? Like, what's going to make the difference to make sure that they don't end up like the Utah Jazz, they end up more like the Sacramento Kings?
That's great, Luke. That's a great comparison and kind of looking down the road. I mean, there are a lot of people, as you guys have read, kind of comparing us to last year's Sacramento Kings that we're going to be there. But as you guys know, if you go back and you look at that Jazz team and what was going on, health again, right, was an issue for them. They lost key players at certain times. Obviously, they made some moves in the season as well, which kind of changed things for them. They surprised people. I think, Markkanen's breakout year surprised them and everything. I feel like that we're more the Kings comparison is a little closer to home simply because much like Sacramento, it's kind of a team that's kind of organically built, with its a lot of draft picks, the key players. Now they, obviously the trades, with getting Sabonis and some others, have helped, but they were going through a process where, they're building. Mike Brown came in there and really established them as a quick pace team. So the big difference I thought was the culture change. Right off the bat. And so we're seeing that a little bit, over the long run with Jamal Mosley, what he's done with this crew. Now, again, health in the NBA is such a big part of this. You look at that Laker team and, from watching them over the last few weeks in the in-season tournament, and you look at them and you're like, man, when they're healthy, they got all those pieces, pretty darn good and everything. That's been a problem for them, right? Even with the greatness of the players they have. So in a long way around, what keeps us from taking the same trajectory as the Kings, in my opinion, and not slipping at the end, really, I think, is about how healthy we can keep, particularly our core, our star guys. The beauty of what we've seen so far is we've been so deep that we've got guys stepping up and filling roles with, we lose our starting, point guard and starting center early in the season. And we've been able to just keep moving on without Markel and without Wendell. But that's because we've been healthy through the rest of our lineup, and Goga and Mo Wagner have filled in terrifically for Wendell. And Anthony Black has stepped in and done a great job in the place of Markel. And then, and our bench has been healthy and everything. So I really, that's the one thing, and I'm sitting at my wood desk here and I'll knock on the wood. That really is, if we can keep guys healthy, if Paolo, if Franz, if Cole, they don't miss significant portions of the season, I just don't see this team slipping as we move throughout the season. I really don't.
Jeff, I wanted to ask you, what do you think? Because again, we talk about the rough start to last season, then the team played relatively well the rest of the season after that rough start, but they're so far on another level this year. I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the biggest difference for those guys, even from the way that they closed out to this last season to the way that they've been playing recently?
I think that, obviously they've got an identity, right? It's their defense first. I thought, we had a little bit of slippage defensively, maybe starting with that Charlotte game at home at the end of that homestand and the two Washington games, and even into Brooklyn a little bit, where we just kind of weren't competing as hard as we've been all season. So I think that, but, as you look down through the league, and everybody goes through those ups and downs, the Magic really believe in their identity, and they all buy into it. And so I think that's a big part of it. That was built over the last, couple of years with Coach Mosley. And I think really kind of they began to understand it at the end of last season. Offensively, their identity, I like the way that Coach Mosley and his staff are, finding ways to overcome, poor shooting. Really, that's the area that we struggle in is from the 3-point line. But we've been able to overcome that because we generate points off of our defense. We get on the glass, that we've been a pretty good offensive rebounding team, second chance points team this season. And we're, if not right now, we've been a top 5 scoring in the paint team all season long. So manufacturing ways to score the basketball. I've been saying on the broadcast that early, we were struggling to score a little bit. With the way we play defense, I really believe that this team, if they can stay above, I just don't think you can average less than 110 points in the NBA in this day and age and succeed. I'm just not sure that your defense night in and night out can help you that much. Because we're holding teams under 110 points. Our defensive efficiency tells us that. But night in and night out, if we can score, north of 110 points, in that 113, 114 points, and we've seen that, I think, Jonathan, over the last, 10 games, we're beginning, really starting to score the basketball a little bit more, despite struggling to shoot it from distance. I think those are things that really are indicative of why I think, shooting's going to come and go, but we do those other things so well that I think they can carry your offense for long periods of time.
The most impressive thing to me, Jeff, is something that I have been bringing up, I feel like, on the show every week now. And the biggest difference from last season to this season, in my opinion, is, aside from the obvious, is that when this team is down in games, they don't get sped up They don't play a game that's not theirs. You still look at the team stats at the end of the night, and it's like, oh, the Magic still shot about their average amount from three. They didn't try to
Yeah.
shoot themselves back into the game, whereas last season we saw that all the time. And kind of the message we heard a lot of was like, Coach Mosley talking about, we just need to continue to realize that we're not going to win the game with one bucket. We're not going to get back in the game with that. What can you pinpoint as far as what it has taken this team to maybe realize that? Because you see it, like even against the Pistons the other night, you give them a shellacking and you only shoot like 33 pointers, but you scored 70 plus points in the paint, I think.
Yeah.
So what can you say about that? Where can you pinpoint for that?
I think it's there's maturity of the players, right? I mean, this is a group that's been together, with this coaching staff, even if it's 2 years for Paolo or 3 years for Franz, they're understanding where their strengths are. Really, to your point, the only game this year where it's gotten, and you can look at the numbers, where it was like that, where we thought we could shoot our way out of it, was the first in-season tournament game against Brooklyn. Brooklyn sped us up, and we shot, I think, 42 threes in that game. The next closest was 35, I think. I mean, you're right. It's just there is such a focus that the way this team is going to score. The other part that I didn't even mention when I was talking is by continuing to attack and get to the paint, we shoot more free throws than anybody else in the league, and so that's, when you start talking about, the analytics of the game and points per possession, obviously, you look at it and it goes down a list. It's right. Like it's how many, layups can you get? Like it's, per possession, and, layups, you're going to shoot a high percentage. It's 1 point, 2 points per possession for that. I'm making these numbers up. It's rounded numbers. I'm not sure if I'm exact on that. Free throws is the second one, right? And then the third would be 3-point shooting. So really the Magic have 2 out of 3 every night. And I think that's important. And then there are going to be nights. The one thing about the 3-point shooting is there's a lot of teams that you watch, and they're just going to come down. They've got players that have the ability off the dribble, and they're just going to, they're a volume 3-point shooting team, figuring they're going to make 15, 16 a game. I think our guys understand. So of those 30 that Luke's talking about, probably 20 of them are going to probably be, I won't say probably, I'm pretty sure they are at least, they're going to be catch and shoot threes, right? When, if we can get Gary Harris corner threes, that's a good thing to have, right? If we can get Franz Wagner or, any of those guys corner feet set threes, they're going to make a high percentage of those. So the type of threes you get, not overdoing it. I think this team understands exactly what their abilities are, and the coaching staff knows that. And it's just, I'll go back to that Brooklyn game. I know they spent a lot of time in the film room looking at, okay, this is what happened to us. And so give the guys a lot of credit for understanding, okay, we can't play this way where we're coming down and just, giving up long rebounds off of missed threes to a team like Brooklyn, and they're gone the other way. We went to Indiana after those 2 Chicago games, and we held a Pacer team to well under their average because we weren't launching threes. We were attacking the paint, getting to the free throw line, limiting the number of possessions that they had. So I think, kind of a long-winded answer, but that's what's impressive to me is, to your point, we're not getting sped up, but a lot of that is maturity, great coaching. I think Jamal has done a great job of emphasizing play to our strengths, pay attention to details, and just go out and compete.
Jeff, the increase in offensive efficiency that we've seen the last, 10 or so games, a lot of fans have pointed out that stretch has coincided with Markelle Fultz being out, which with Markelle being out, I believe that Paolo's usage rate has increased by 5%. think he's getting close to 20 plus additional touches per game. I don't know. Maybe that's all coincidental. Maybe it's not. What is your opinion on when Markelle and Wendell, come back and those guys are going to start when they come back, right? Those are veteran guys. Do you think the offense changes at all when those guys come back? Because we have been so reliant on Paolo and Franz, the last several weeks.
Yeah, let me first say this. I don't know that it used to be the unwritten rule understood that when a starter was out, a starter comes back, they immediately go back into the starting lineup. In this day and age, now remember, we've seen this in the past where the guy's coming back from a pretty serious injury, they monitor minutes, right? So if you've got a guy that you want, say, okay, well, I'm going to limit Markelle to say 20 minutes. You might not start him in that situation because, typically starters play longer extended minutes. So I don't know that that's a guarantee. What I will say, though, is, and I'm going to sound like Coach Mosley here, is Markelle Fultz and Wendell Carter are high basketball IQ guys, right? Like they get it. They've been standing over there or sitting over there watching. So part of it is they're learning, watching and learning what has worked and what's not worked. I don't think either of them want to take away touches by Paolo Banchero the way he's playing right now. They'll figure out a way to make it work, to fit in. My thing with people is, it's like I've had people say, well, when they come back, we're playing so well, they'll mess up, a good thing. And my point to everybody is you over the long run, you're not going to mess up a team by adding really good talent back into the mix, right? Now, will some guys playing time be affected? Absolutely. You can't add two guys back into the mix that, if they play 15, 20 minutes, it affects somebody's minutes. But that's a good problem to have. It goes back to what we started with earlier, that depth that this team has, that you can survive injuries, you can survive adversity, you can survive foul trouble, whatever it is, because you've got such great depth. And putting those two guys back in the mix at whatever the minutes are, what starter coming off the bench, only makes this team stronger. It may take, like anytime you change something in the short term, it may affect some things originally as we try to figure out what that rotation looks like. But in the long run, and that's what we're talking about now, right? We're talking about the long run. We're seeing a team that is looking to make the playoffs, make some noise. That's what you're looking at down the long run. So I think it's going to be fun to watch. So I look forward to seeing how Coach Mosley and his staff navigate that. And what's really interesting about this team is that I've never been around a team other than all my years, and this is at every level. Whether it's high school, college, the pros, where it appears and it looks like, and it looks very genuine. You guys go to the games, you see the guys. This is a group that really supports one another, and really they're all on the same page. And that is, that's something that's really special. And I think as long as, as guys want each other to have success, so there won't be, I don't anticipate a lot of jealousy or anything like that happening when we start adding guys back into the mix.
Talking about, how well Paolo's been playing lately, a couple of weeks ago, he wins Eastern Conference Player of the Week, had the 42-point game, the career high last week, and has just really been killing it offensively. What do you think has been the biggest difference in Paolo's game, with this recent hot stretch?
I think his confidence. I think, just he's a tireless worker, and that's not just on the court. That's studying film and trying to figure out where he can get his shots. I mean, it's like it's funny. I was really kind of focused in on the last couple of games. The 42-point game, and then the game tonight. He's got spots, right? He's got spots on the floor that are his go-to spots. and he knows when he gets to those places that, he's going to have success. Great players do that. You mentioned the usage earlier. I feel like, and I think this happens pretty organically. Players understand, teammates understand. Listen, we got to get Franz and Paolo more shots. Early in the season, those two are averaging about 13, 14 shots a game. Now we're seeing them, get up to 18 to, 20. I think Franz had 20 plus the other night. Obviously in the last meeting against Cleveland, Paolo had 16 of 26. So, it's just, fine. These are your guys, right? They understand these are our two best players. We got to make sure they're getting plenty of touches and let them go. But I think for Paolo, I just think his confidence right now is at an all-time high. I love the fact that we're seeing less and less of him when he attacks the basket, trying to change his shot, almost avoiding contact, trying to go around. He's going through contact. And that's just maturation. He's figuring it out. And that's, it's crazy. 21 years old and just starting to figure it out, but he ain't there yet. And, it's going to be fun to watch when he finally does.
Last thing, Jeff, we'll leave you with this. The success that the Magic have had this season, 15-7 towards the top of the Eastern Conference. The 9-game win streak obviously was not sustainable. You're not going to win every game for the rest of the season. But where would you with these new expectations and the new standard that I think a lot of us have this team, do you think this level of winning is sustainable, and where do you think the Magic will or should end up this season?
Wow, that's we're at the quarter pole, man. Come on. I think here's the key part of this is going to be ups and downs in the season. We've seen this. I do think what we're doing is sustainable. I don't know if there's another 9-game win streak in us, but I think because Steve Clifford used to say this all the time. You remember from press conferences, teams have a way to play, right? They have a way to play. And I always thought that was what is he talking about? And if you think about, you look at this Magic team and you watch other teams, I watch, a lot of basketball and everything. And sometimes, teams will have, some nights they give up a lot of points. Some nights they don't. You watch that Indiana Pacer team. They have a way to play. They want to play fast through Halliburton. Not a great defensive team. They scramble and everything, but they want to play up tempo. The Magic are the same way. And I think that's why it's sustainable, because we're going to play at, a medium pace. I think we're top 16 in pace now. But that pace is generated off of our defense by, forcing, more opportunities, more possessions based on our defense. And so that's something that night in and night out, it's cliche, but defense really does travel. And when you can convince guys, what we've seen in the past, going back to, what Luke was saying earlier about the Magic getting sped up. And, last season, at times, we were playing good defense, but if the shots weren't falling, the defense started slipping a little bit and we start playing fast. I think now, the defense being better, and Coach Mosley's really preaching, we've been able to, have some bad starts at times. We've had some lulls, but we're still in the game because we're solid enough defensively. We rebound the basketball and we win the possession battle night in and night out usually. And so that, I think, is why we have this way that we play, and the guys all understand it, buy into it. So to answer your question, I think it is sustainable. Now, where that takes us at the end, I think at the beginning of the season, we were all thinking, realistically, we want to at least be a play-in team and everything. Well, I think the expectations have risen a little bit, haven't they? Now it's okay, we want to be a playoff team. We want to stay completely out of this play-in scenario. So now you're thinking, well, to do that, you got to be top 6. We'll check back in at the halfway point and see how we do. But, I think that's that's kind of what you're looking at, right? That's what the expectations become. But the bad part about that now is all of a sudden this young Magic team that's been hunting becomes the hunter or the hunted, right? And so everybody is going to bring their best games, not just walk in. Especially that Boston Celtics team, they've got to be thinking long and hard about this Orlando Magic team, don't they?
We know one ex-Celtic is in particular.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, Jeff Turner, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you guys do. We always say that you guys are the best broadcast team in the league. Always a pleasure to listen to you all. And yes, we're going to check in another 20 games or so.
Okay.
And the Magic have a really rough stretch in between now and then. So I think we'll be able to say for sure with a lot more certainty where we think this team should end up and will end up by that point. But yeah, let's stay out of the play-in. I'm all for that.
Okay, I like it.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
All right, thanks, guys.
A big shout out to Jeff Turner, Uncle Jeff, from, again, Valley Sports, Florida. Color commentator. I really struggle with that word early on in that interview. But again, just a big thank you talking to Jeff. Always just brings such positivity, but also great insight. Something that I realized a few years ago was Jeff Turner isn't just a guy that played for the Magic once and now he happens to be the guy doing the color analysis. Jeff Turner is a diehard Orlando Magic fan, and even though he's supposed to be unbiased on the broadcast, he's still rooting for these guys to do well. And I just appreciate so much that he gives us the opportunity to get a peek behind the curtain and to for him to share his insight with us. Always appreciate it, Luke.
Yeah, great guy, friend, almost family,
family of the podcast.
Uncle Jeff. Had him. I don't even know. That was probably his fifth time. Something like that.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
We'll have him again here in the next, quarter mark. They're really at the halfway mark of the season. And as we said at the end of that interview, we'll have a little bit more answers about this team and ask more hard-hitting questions.
Has Jeff Turner made more guest appearances than anyone in the Six Man Show's history? I think there's a really good chance that he is.
Yeah, I would say so.
It's got to be 6 or 7 at this point, and I can't think of anybody that has come that close.
It's easy when you've got a set thing, and Jeff has just been super gracious to already assume that hey, 20-25 games from now, see you guys then on the pod.
We're doing something right. We're not scaring him away.
That's true. He hasn't stopped. Once he stopped saying I'll see you guys in another 20-25 games, then we can evaluate. But right now, we're doing all right.
Luke, let's take a look at the week ahead. So this week, you've got a game Monday night as you all are listening to this, at home versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. You're off Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday, you travel to Boston. You take them on Friday, and then you stay in Boston. So we've got another, mini series weekend in Boston. Friday and Sunday, you're in Boston. I don't want to bring up, old issues. We were supposed to be at this game Friday originally, but that didn't happen. But now we get to be at the watch party with all of our wonderful, fellow Magic fans at, what's the name again?
Tavern East
East Orlando.
East, yeah.
Tavern East Orlando, folks. It's taken us a little bit to get over the Castaways name, but so that's when this watch party is going to be, Luke. What is your prediction of the Magic this week? I'm just going to say 3-0 because we've got to get Cleveland back. I know this is not going to be popular. You got to get Cleveland back for the loss, last week. And then for the sake of a lot of things, you have to win both games in Boston this weekend. So this is a full heart pick for me. I'm going 3-0.
This was going to be very much a heart pick for me, Jonathan. I, too, was going to say 3-0. Believe it or not.
Don't let me change your mind.
Well, I got to be different than you.
No, you don't.
I feel that way.
We disagree on plenty of things. We don't have to disagree every single week on our predictions.
I know, but it's just the competitiveness in me. I want to beat you in a prediction, but
you're so competitive. We didn't even do predictions on last week's episode.
Yeah, that got away from me. I haven't gone back and pinpointed how we at least got off track there.
Because we started
Fine.
talking about the massive stretch between, now and January 29th. We got a little sidetracked there.
Yeah. So I will stick with 3-0. And really my point with that is you've had, Magic fans have been kind of maybe second guessing a little bit just how good is this Orlando Magic team. Yet to be seen, really, just because, yes, we saw the win streak, but as you and I talked about when we were talking about like shifting expectations, I told you I want to wait till this win streak's over to really see like where we're at when the hand cools off a little bit. How did the Magic handle just their day in day out and game to game? I think this is the week that the Magic remind people that, hey, we lost a couple games recently, but it doesn't matter. We're back, right? You get yourself back on track. You get that tune-up game against the Pistons. You're at home where you've lost technically once at home this year in Amway, in that building, because we're not going to count that Mexico City game. You've lost once. You've beat some marquee teams. Cleveland, you're favored. Listen, man, everybody knows this by now. I'm a big odds guy. But when Vegas believes in you, that's saying something. This Cleveland team was good last year. They're a very good team.
And they've been good lately.
And they've been really good lately. They beat you most recently. I think this Magic team, they're back at home, going to get things back on the right path. Like I said, you have that tune-up game against Detroit, and you get a few days rest. You go to Boston, and you get to play Boston. I think, Jonathan, you go 3-0, you overtake Boston. You overtake Boston this week with 2 wins, right? Now the tricky part is the Bucks play. They play one more game than you this week. They play the Bulls Monday. And right now you guys are tied by record's sake. They play the Bulls Monday, the Pacers Wednesday. I think that could go either way at this point. The Pacers are playing really well. Then you've got Detroit. The Bucks have Detroit on Saturday. And you got the Rockets on Sunday. Rockets, they can kind of surprise you. They're going to beat teams that they probably don't have business beating.
Who has the Rockets on Sunday?
The Bucks.
Milwaukee? Okay.
Mm-hmm. So that rounds out their week. So they've got a favorable schedule this week. But my hope is that the Bucks lose enough this week, which essentially would mean they lose 2 out of the 4. So I'm saying maybe a miracle loss to the Bulls, and then or you beat the Pacers beat you and the Rockets beat you.
Why do you care about if we're tied with the Bucks, we have the tiebreaker. We currently own second place. I know you're like, I want to see the record be better, but like if the records are the same and we beat them, then we're better by the tiebreaker. So
yeah, so if they go 3-1, Magic would technically be a half game up, I think, in that scenario anyway. But yeah, I mean, hopefully, they got 4 games this week. Magic have 3. So if they sweep and we sweep, they're definitely ahead. They have one more win than us at that point. So anyway, there's a good chance the Magic are tied for first by the end of the week if you go 3-0. It feels like a big if, but you and I are both predicting it.
You said if the Magic go 3-0, it says like, hey, we're back. Mm-hmm. If the Magic go 3-0, to me it says we never left. We dropped a couple of games. We're still here. Mm-hmm. So you have Cleveland at home on Monday, in which you're favored in, right? Like you should get that game back, I think. The Magic are then off Tuesday. Then they practice Wednesday and Thursday. So you've got 2 days of getting ready for Boston before you head to Boston. Mm-hmm. I like that for the Magic.
Yep.
And watch parties. What is it?
Very
5,
good.
6 watch parties in a row where the Magic have won when the Magic partner with us for watch parties. And then you've got the Eddie House element to this as well. And if we win both of those games, then we just get to troll Eddie House even more. And that's just fun all the way around. So that's why I really want and need that
going
to happen.
Straight to that man's X profile if we beat them on Friday especially.
And Kevin is just coming in. Boston is on their second night of a back-to-back on Friday.
You got to get that one for sure.
Got to get that one.
Yep.
And that'll be like, what, 5, 6 games in a row that we would have beat Boston at that point? Like, got to feel pretty
5
good about
if you beat them on Friday.
All right, Luke, let's keep it going, folks. Don't forget, Monday, as you're listening to this, after the game on Monday versus Cleveland, Ben will be outside of Amway filming the new episode of The Sixth Fan Show. And then our next watch party coming up this Friday when the Magic take on the Celtics at Tavern East Orlando, formerly Castaways, located at 504 North Alafaya Trail. Game is going to start at 8 o'clock, be there around 7:30. And yeah, we're looking for a big turnout. Should be a lot of fun, Luke. Anything else before we wrap this one up?
No, big week ahead for the Orlando Magic. Try to find something to do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday when they aren't playing. But when they are playing, it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully we can sweep this week.
Well, Wednesday we'll be recording the pod, so you'll be okay that day. And then, you and Kevin will play Fortnite the other night. You guys will be just fine.
That's very true.
That's going to do it for this one, folks. A big shout out again to Uncle Jeff Turner, for joining the show. Always a pleasure. Always so much fun talking to that guy. For Luke Sylvia, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to The Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!